Hi, Josh here. I've wanted to do one video that has an overview of all the settings and the functions available to you when using the app with the Afidus ATL-230 or ATL-800i time-lapse cameras. Now, it's taking about 20 minutes to run through this. In the description, I'll have an index. You can skip forward. I'm just going to touch on things relatively quickly here. Details of functions available in other videos. So first, we've got the live preview. If I tap on the screen here, you have a zoom slider, and this is an optical zoom lens, 15 to about 35 millimeters, and you've got focusing controls. Now for full precision, you've got the full screen preview as well with the same controls. So I've got the wide angle here, 16 millimeters, 35 millimeters here, and that's optical zoom. I've got precision focusing as well as autofocusing available here. I can pinch out and move around the area of the screen to see what's in focus and what's not, and I could adjust the focus. I wasn't going to get into much demo, but this is just too good. To have the ability to precisely focus a camera that is capable of long-term time-lapse and real-time video, you've got a lot of versatility built into this system. So that's fairly shallow depth of field, and an overview of the full-screen app preview. This is a great tool. You've got two control strips here, two control sections. This horizontal section here, and this is the vertical down here. Recording mode, we're going to leave it at time-lapse, because we're shooting time-lapse videos. There are other modes that we'll detail in other videos. Capture interval. This is how often the camera is taking one frame to build into your time-lapse video. You can choose one of the presets. Here's continuous, which capturing frame per second, continuous is 30. So those continuous and the capturing FPS go together. So if I did want to capture 10 frames per second, I can certainly do that. But back to the interval, 1 second, and you can choose one of the presets like I mentioned, or you can set your own interval. If you wanted to do capture every 1 minute and 7 seconds, you could do a capture every 1 minute and 7 seconds. Capturing frame per second, that was 30 FPS. This is your playback speed. Typically we leave it at 30. You can adjust that in your editing. Schedule hours, so you can set a start time and a stop time each day. So if I want to go to custom, I can set start time, stop time. Now you can also set multiple start times and stop times, up to 4. So you could have rush hour in the morning, rush hour in the evening if you're doing a traffic survey. If you want to skip lunch hour, you could skip lunch hour every day. You can set that up with 4 different variables for 1 day of recording. Scheduling your weekdays. If you don't want to record Saturday and Sunday, uncheck Saturday and Sunday. There you go. That easy. Total days. This tells the camera when to turn off. Typically we let the batteries die or the card fill. So total days, not a critical option, but you know it's there. This one's very handy. Recording appointment. So you can set a recording appointment if you want the camera to say start at a later date. So if you're going to set up the camera on a Friday and it's going to start next Tuesday or Wednesday, you can select up to 30 days into the future when that recording process starts. So you don't have to use up card space or battery just to get to the actual start date of your video. Great if you're going to set up a camera ahead of time before an event. And disable that for right now. That's the horizontal scroll. Now we're into the vertical. Quality +4. That's the highest quality video. Scene. Automatic. So this gets into your exposures. You can choose daylight, night, star, but you've also got the ability to select a manual exposure. If you want, you can go full manual with the camera. This does override all the auto settings. Well, your preview will tell you how it looks, but if you use manual exposures, just realize that if the changing light levels, like during the day and night, that transition, the camera won't adjust. So just be familiar with your settings, and before you lock it in, confirm that's exactly what you want to do. Auto is absolutely fine for most situations. Resolution on this camera, full HD. You could do 720, 1080. This is 4K or 1080 on the 800i. Aspect ratio is 16:9 or 1:1. 1:1 is just essentially a square preview. If you wanted to do a square Instagram crop, you could say, hey, I want to make sure that this is within that crop area, and you go back to 16:9 for actually capturing your video. Exposure compensation, -1, because we've got bright lights here. ISO, typically auto is fine, but again, you do have the ability to manually set your ISO up to 12,800. Auto, for the most part, that's all you need. White balance, same thing. Auto, but you do have the option of going to a manual color temperature. If you want to set the actual Kelvin temperature here and it won't change, you can certainly do that. So you don't have any automatic color shifting, which is managed very well with the auto setting. Contrast, sharpness, and saturation, these are subjective. You can change them if you want. HDR, it's blending the bright areas of the image and the dark areas of the image to get a better exposure range. Typically we leave it at medium. Distortion correction, sometimes with close lenses you've got a barrel distortion or a curvature. Let's see, I'll turn this off and you'll notice it's got a little bit of a curve to it. Distortion correction will correct that in most instances, and I typically leave it on. Much less noticeable at a distance than it is close up like this. Rotate, this is a good little feature. You can rotate it 180 degrees. So if you're going to mount the camera upside down, hanging like a bat, like a suction cup to a window, or even outdoors when it's windy out, rather than having the camera perched on top of a mount, the camera is suspended below its lower center of gravity and less likely for movement. It just takes some of that stress off of the mount, and you can change that rotation here so that you can preview it and your video will actually record in the right direction. Digital zoom, there is a digital zoom range. If I turn this on, there is a white dot that appears in the zoom slider. So we've got the optical zoom from here to that white dot, and then to the right is digital. This will switch to saying digital over there. Typically we don't use it, but if you've got something that's going to, well, you don't want to get close to, a spider or something. Let's see, down at the bottom here, right now I'm just going to take a snapshot here. Took a still frame, saved it, use that here in just a minute. Up at the top we've got our battery indicator and we've got our card space. It says I've used 3 gigabytes. I've got 29.7 gigabytes remaining. So out of a 32 gigabyte card, that's where I'm at. This eye, if I tap the eye, I get most of the settings in one location. So I don't have to go through and check each individual setting. If I want to confirm, I can take a look here and see my schedule. I can see my settings. Just make sure in one spot that everything's set up the way I want. There's a grid. This is a rule of thirds grid. If you want a straight horizon, you can add the grid and you've got some guidelines. It won't record with the grid, but that's just there to turn on and off if you want. Now, 3-dot menu here and some more advanced features. There's not advanced, just less commonly used features in this menu. Calculator though, I'm going to start from the bottom because this is a fantastic resource for you. There's a built-in time-lapse calculator. And if you say, hey, I'm going to record for 40 hours and I want to record, let's see, I think I want to capture every minute. Okay, so it's going to be 1.33 minutes of video, 662.5 megabytes, 2400 frames. And you can do that with any variable here based upon your project. If you've got an 8-hour day, you can do an 8-hour day. Typically we use the number of hours in a day or in the hours of a project to end up with results. Keep in mind, it's always better to record more than not enough. So you can speed this up in editing. You can easily get rid of footage where you can't go back and reshoot it. So this is a good tool to confirm that you're going to get the content that you want. Image alignment. You can use image alignment, say you take down the camera and you want to change the batteries, swap out the card. If you want precise alignment, you can choose the previous view that you took a snapshot of. I know that I want the outline to be white. I'll turn this on. And what this does is it builds a wireframe outline around your previous view. So I know that if I line these items up here, my video is going to be very close, right about there. If you're changing batteries in the card once a month, a little off isn't going to matter. You don't necessarily need to do this with precision. Something like this, though, in this scene, certainly that gives you the option of doing that. Now, there's another menu of camera settings, and these are less used settings. So you've got the camera model serial number. If you had a firmware update, it would show up in here. Your card, you can format the card within the camera. There's lens calibration. If the camera had a hard time focusing for some reason, or dropped or bumped, somehow that optical zoom lens element in there got shifted, calibrating the lens will typically bring it right back to its normal snappy self. Recording circulation, you could turn that on if you were doing a surveillance type application and you wanted to just overwrite the old information on the card, the old data. It would just keep recording without stopping. You would not get a full card. High video compression is H.264. If you know what H.265 means, toggle that and you got H.265 codec compression. Video format. MP4 is your standard format. I've got some big plans for this FMP4. Leave it on MP4. If you have problems playing a video, it might be on FMP4. Just double check that. MP4, which is the standard for the past 20, 30 years of video. Split file by date. Typically we leave this on. Having one file every day makes editing much easier, especially on a long project. Because typically you'll have a bad weather day or a day where there's no activity or they're working on the back side of the building. If you can just remove the entire day, it makes editing really easy rather than watching a long video and trying to split up your days with your editing. So typically we leave split file by date on. AE optimizer. The cameras have, you can see it here, there's a photo sensor right below the lens. That photo sensor and AE optimizer turned on is going to predict, or at least attempt to predict, the changing light levels. So let's go with the sunrise or sunset. With auto cameras, a lot of times if you film like a sunrise and it gets darker and darker, the camera will auto compensate and try to get brighter and brighter. With AE optimizer on, the camera will try to follow that light level and have less flickering. And it does a pretty good job if you're doing faster intervals, like every 5 seconds or 10 seconds. DIS, dynamic image stabilization. Since you can record 30 frames per second real time, you could use this as a secondary camera moving around in a car, on a boat. Not necessarily an action camera, but as a secondary camera. It does have in-camera stabilization. LED indicator on the buzzer, simply the indicator on the top, and the beep. Powerpack shutdown avoidance. If you want to use an external battery pack that you would use to charge your phone, oftentimes those battery packs will power off when the phone is fully charged. If you want to use the pack on the camera, the interval, say you had a 5-minute interval, or you're not recording overnight, the power draw from the camera is so little that typically those packs will shut off. Powerpack shutdown avoidance allows you to choose an interval here where the camera will essentially ping the battery pack to keep it alive, to keep it awake and responding, and not to power off. So you can use essentially any battery pack. In the past, you'd have to buy an always-on battery pack. Not so with this camera. You can use a battery pack, and typically like this normal level, sending a signal to the battery pack every 20 seconds will prevent it from going to sleep on you. Wi-Fi awakening. There's a lot to go into this concept, but essentially you can connect to the camera within range with your phone without actually touching the camera and turning the camera on or manipulating the camera physically. How it's done is setting up a time every day. So say from 5 to 5:15, I could set it for once every minute, and I want the camera to search for my phone. So if I had an iPhone, you've got one phone name. Mine would be Josh's phone. Hotspot ID would be Josh's phone. So every day, this camera is going to look for my network. And if my phone hotspot is active, it will connect to that. There's a lot that goes into this. For me, if I'm that close enough to the camera, I'm going to go to the ladder or whatever and check the camera physically, change the battery, pull the card. If I had somebody on site that I wanted them to check it occasionally, maybe once a week, I might consider using this because the camera doesn't ever stop recording. So somebody can come in here and check the settings, the status, even if they don't do anything. If they walk away, the camera is going to continue with its process. It's not going to stop. Another fantastic feature of the camera is the power management itself. Externally, You've got a waterproof USB port, micro USB here for your connection, weatherproof housing. The camera will essentially not stop recording until you tell it to stop recording. If you had, say, a battery pack or a solar panel or solar battery, if that died and the camera stopped recording, it's going to rest dormant. Once power is restored, the camera is going to continue with its active recording process. So you don't actually have to go and turn on the camera or be concerned about that. And it'll switch from batteries to USB and back depending upon the strength of the power, where it's got the best power. You had like a brownout or somebody kicked out a cord, you plug it back in and the camera is going to continue to operate. On the 4K camera, you've got the 4K. Here you've got 1080 and a super long battery life. I like these cameras. I would choose to have two on site for maybe two different views, a backup, one indoors, one outdoors. 4K, if you really need 4K, it's available to you. This sensor is fantastic, even scaled up to 4K. The 1080 camera does well. This, if you think you're going to buy it to crop, to zoom, to pan, to use 4K creatively, time-lapse is already creative. You may not need 4K, but if you want 4K, you got it. And one of the things we've got in the 4K camera, you'll notice there's a microphone. So you've got a waterproof microphone in the 4K camera. Waterproof, I mean weatherproof. Waterproof would be submerged. Let's go with weatherproof. But you do have the option of continuous recording, 4K, 30 frames per second with audio. You've got a fantastic second camera. Rather than trying to take it, say, an action camera and make it do time-lapse, now you've got time-lapse, can go beyond an action camera. I wouldn't go scuba diving or jumping out of a plane with it, but you've got a secondary camera with optical zoom, microphone, whatever you need for other projects. And it'll even do 2 frames a second. So you can essentially do time-lapse with audio as long as it's real-time recording at 2 frames a second. Getting into it really deep, 1/4-20 mount at the bottom of the cameras. There are some handy tab mounts here. There's accessory ports here that you can screw in and mount to. That camera powered down, so it's going to go back to the app here. I might as well just say, okay, this is how it works. Turn it on. Wi-Fi is active when you've got a solid green LED. On the tablet here, I'm going to look for the Wi-Fi network. It's going to pop up here. There we go, ATL-230, connected without internet. We're not going to do online banking between the camera and the device, so there's no need for internet. There's no internet in this connection. So go ahead and hit done. Go to your app. It's already connected. This would be your first app screen here. We're going to review the card and contents on the card or access the control page. One thing I did fail to mention, you do have a timestamp. Missed that one here. The date and the time, you can set that to appear on your screen. You can do your own custom text, camera 1, north camera, whatever, and you can move this around different positions on the screen. Another thing to note is that the time is synced to your device. Once you connect, the time is synchronized in the camera. You don't have to set the time. So if you're in an area that does change the time twice a year, you're going to have the camera 1 hour off until you connect it to the next time, and then it'll automatically update. Okay, I'm back. One of the things that I noticed, it's hard to see the zoom slider and the focusing controls with the busy background. So let's just take this, essentially a gray card here. I tap on the card, you can see the focusing controls. Zoom, focus, and then when you go full screen preview, you've got the same thing there. Back there, didn't share was how to start the recording. Obviously the red record button. Now it's going to just bring up a brief summary. Recording mode, time lapse your interval left at 1 minute and 7 seconds. Capturing frames per second, that doesn't apply because it's not real time capture, but I did leave that at 10. Frame per second playback is 30. My start time, my stop time, my days of the week, everything. So I can hit record, check camera, focus, battery, storage before recording. Storage is key. Make sure you do have enough space on that card to actually start recording, because if it's full, it'll start recording and it will stop when it fills up. Hit record. The camera's going to double beep. Camera's recording. Wi-Fi is unavailable until you stop the recording. Again, the green light is flashing on the top of the camera. There you go. About every 5 seconds, that confirms that your camera is recording. To stop the recording, just press and hold. While I'm here, a couple of other things to mention. The LED, if you see a different color, cards missing, cards full, cards in the wrong format, cards corrupt or unreadable, too large for the camera. Could also mean the batteries are almost dead. Flashing red and solid red indicate that you may not have enough power in the camera to maintain a stable Wi-Fi connection. You don't need the app to start or stop a recording. You can use the camera itself. So long press will turn the camera on and the Wi-Fi. You get a solid green light. A short press, double beep, the camera LED will be flashing here every 5 seconds, indicating that the camera is recording, which it is doing. Sorry about the length, but there are a lot of exciting features in here to share with you. Look at the index. Please let us know if you have any questions. We're here to help. And with these cameras, you don't have a better choice as far as long-term time-lapse goes, with all the functions and the flexibility right at your fingertips.